The storm rolled in faster than anyone expected. Thick gray clouds swallowed the late autumn sky over Willow Creek, turning the town's quiet streets into trembling ribbons of rain and wind. Cars sped home, windows shuttered, and shop signs clattered like frantic warnings. And in the middle of all that chaos, while most people rushed to safety, a single dad named Ethan Hayes found himself slamming on his brakes, his heart jarring in his chest, as a tiny figure stumbled out onto the empty road like a ghost of panic and fear. She was drenched, shaking, and wearing a thin pink sweater that clung to her like a second skin. But what stopped Ethan cold wasn't the storm or the danger. It was the girl's eyes. Wide, lost, terrified, and utterly alone. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, make sure to like this video, share it with someone you care about, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. Ethan's life had never been simple. At 34, he carried the heavy quiet of someone who had been broken before and still chose to grow instead of collapse. Raising his 6-year-old son, Noah, alone after losing his wife to an unexpected illness 3 years ago, he had learned to live through pain like most people lived through seasons. He worked at the town's auto shop, took parenting one day at a time, and went to bed each night hoping that tomorrow would hurt a little less. But nothing in his life had prepared him for finding a little girl alone in the storm, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one missing ear and trembling as if the world had turned against her. He pulled over, rushing out into the rain, scooping the girl up the way a father would lift his own child from danger. Her small body sagged into his chest as if she had finally found a safe harbor. She didn't speak, at least not at first. She just held on with desperate little fingers, her face buried against him. Ethan shielded her as he carried her back to his truck, buckled her carefully into the back seat, and wrapped her in his own jacket. Noah, peering from his booster seat, stared with wide confusion, but said nothing. He sensed the fear around her, sensed the gravity, the way children often understood more than adults realized. On the drive home, the girl whispered one shaky word, "Amelia." Her voice cracked like the storm was living inside her chest. Ethan didn't push. He knew the weight of silence. He knew that some stories needed warmth before they could be told. Once they reached his small, 2-bedroom home on the outskirts of town, he brought Amelia inside, dried her off, and offered her food. She barely touched it, but she stayed close to him and Noah, as if proximity alone kept the darkness away. Hours passed. The storm continued its assault against the windows. Amelia sat curled on the couch with Noah's favorite blanket over her. She stared at the flickering fireplace as though she were trying to remember something, or maybe trying to forget. Every so often, she glanced toward the front door, her face tightening with worry. Ethan called the police, believing there must already be a search for her, but the storm had taken down the lines and cell service flickered in and out like a dying candle. With no way to reach anyone and the roads nearly impossible to drive, all he could do was keep her safe and wait. As the hours stretched, Ethan noticed things: a small scratch on her cheek, dirt smudges on her socks, and a way she jumped at loud noises. Noah kept trying to show her his toys, and slowly, Amelia's shoulders lowered from around her ears. She even allowed Noah to hand her a tiny toy car, the red paint scratched from countless crashes and adventures. Ethan watched her, an ache forming in his chest. Children weren't supposed to look that lost. They weren't supposed to hold fear like it was stitched into their bones. When the storm finally loosened its grip sometime after midnight, Ethan stepped outside to check whether the phone towers had stabilized. The town was pitch black, the power still down. The wind still howled across the empty field behind his house, scattering leaves like fleeing birds. But something else caught his attention: faint flashes of red and blue slicing through the darkness far beyond the trees, heading toward town. Emergency lights. Hope flickered. Back inside, he found Amelia finally asleep on the couch, curled beside Noah, who had fallen asleep next to her like a tiny guardian. Ethan covered both children with blankets and sat in the chair across from them. He watched them breathe. He listened to the storm dying outside, and he felt something unusual stir in him, a feeling he hadn't known in a long time. Not quite peace, not quite purpose, something in between. something like destiny gently placing its hand on his shoulder. When dawn broke, soft and gold against the gray remnants of the storm, the phone signal finally returned. Ethan reached for it, ready to call the authorities. But before he could even dial, an emergency alert flashed across every device in the county. Amber Alert. Missing child. Amelia Rose Sullivan, age 5. Last seen near mayor's residence. Possible abduction suspect. Town lockdown in effect. Ethan froze. His breath stuck somewhere between disbelief and dread. Amelia? The mayor's daughter? He stared at the screen, then turned slowly toward the sleeping girl. She looked so small, so breakable, worlds away from political titles or headlines. He couldn't reconcile the scared little child on his couch with the child whose disappearance had thrown an entire county into chaos. He dialed the emergency number immediately. Within 15 minutes, police cars arrived in front of his home, tires crunching over wet gravel. Officers stepped out, cautious but relieved, their expressions heavy with the exhaustion of an all-night search. When they entered the house, Amelia jolted awake, panic exploding in her eyes. She scrambled backward, clutching the stuffed rabbit tightly, tears rushing to her face. Ethan knelt beside her, offering a steady presence. He whispered calm reassurances, promised her she was safe, and only when she clung to his hand did he stand and lead her to the officers. They handled her gently, understanding the trauma. They thanked Ethan repeatedly, though gratitude seemed too small for the relief flooding their faces. It wasn't long before the mayor himself arrived, Mayor Jonathan Sullivan, a name Ethan had heard countless times but never expected to meet like this. The man stepped out of a black SUV, his face pale and devastated, eyes swollen from sleeplessness. When he saw Amelia, his legs nearly gave out. He rushed forward, sweeping her into his arms with a sob that broke the morning quiet. It was a moment so raw, so human, that Ethan had to look away. Authorities soon discovered footprints near the mayor's property, a broken fence latch, and tire tracks leading toward the forest. The working theory was an attempted abduction that had gone wrong when the storm hit, causing the suspect to flee before taking the girl. Amelia, frightened and disoriented, had wandered off on her own, eventually ending up miles away near the road where Ethan found her. The entire town buzzed with the story. But what stuck with people more than the crime or the chaos was the image of a single father, struggling quietly through his own life, who didn't hesitate to protect a child who wasn't his. A man who didn't hesitate to become someone's safe place, even for a night. Ethan tried to return to his life, but he couldn't quite forget Amelia's trembling hand gripping his shirt, or the way she relaxed only when Noah sat beside her. And he also couldn't forget the moment the mayor turned to him, tears still drying on his cheeks, and said that he owed Ethan more than gratitude could ever repay. Days passed, then a week, and then, unexpectedly, the mayor visited Ethan's home again, this time with Amelia smiling shyly beside him. Her cheeks had regained their color, her eyes brighter, her rabbit freshly sewn with a new ear. She ran to Ethan without fear, hugging him with a familiarity that pulled at his chest. Noah joined seconds later, and the two children laughed like old friends. Mayor Sullivan stood quietly watching them, before telling Ethan that Amelia spoke about him constantly. She had told him about the warmth of the fireplace, the soft blanket, Noah's toys, and the way she felt safe, truly safe, for the first time since the incident. The mayor confessed he had been struggling since that night, unable to shake the what-ifs, the guilt, the nightmares. But hearing how Ethan cared for her had given him comfort in a way nothing else had. He then told Ethan he had a job offer for him, maintenance director for the entire fleet of town vehicles, a better salary, better hours, and benefits that would help him and Noah finally breathe from the weight of financial strain. Ethan resisted at first, humbled, unsure he deserved such generosity. But the mayor insisted, reminding him that some debts in life were paid not with money, but with opportunities. Ethan accepted eventually, not for pride, but for Noah, because single fathers made decisions based on love, not ego. Life shifted slowly but beautifully. Noah and Amelia became inseparable friends, their laughter echoing through parks and living rooms alike. The mayor visited often, not as a politician, but as a father grateful beyond words. and Ethan found himself surrounded by a community that had seen his quiet heroism and decided he deserved more than struggle.